He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened. These are the words of Lao Tzu. He was born in 571 BC, and he went on to write the Tao Te Ching. You probably know him best for his most famous quote, which is, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." This lesser-known quote that I just used is one that we're going to talk about today. How do you get to know yourself? Why is it important to get to know yourself? Well, it's very important. My name is Edward Durante, and this is Life's Perfect Square. You know, the Greeks had their own interpretation of this. Above the temple of Apollo in Delphi, they wrote "Nate Seauton," which means know thyself. It's interesting because the Delphi ruins, the Palace of Apollo, is where the Greek oracle was. An oracle was a place where people used to go to ask questions. They'd ask questions about their future. Women would go to ask if they were going to be married, if they were going to have children, how many children. Men would go there to see if they were going to be successful in upcoming battles, or if they were going to have a position that was going to be higher than the one that they held today. Not much different than we do today. You know, we consult astrologers, fortune tellers. We're always looking for a little bit of an advantage, trying to get some insight into the future and what might happen to us, how we can improve those things in the future. You know, in the last podcast, I talked about René Descartes. And René Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." I kind of flipped that around and said, I think he has it half right, but he has it backwards in some ways. It's "I am, therefore I think." You are higher than your thought process. Before you know that you are John Smith or Mary Jones, you know "I am. I am, I am, I am that I am." That goes back to the Old Testament when Moses was up on Mount Sinai and the voice was giving him the tablets to take down to his people to tell them how they should live their lives. Moses was a little disconcerted. He didn't think that he could be the speaker. He couldn't be the leader of all these people with unruly aspects, and they all wanted to go in a different direction. They all wanted to ask questions. They all had ideas and thoughts of their own. And he wasn't a great speaker. He didn't have a history in speaking. He didn't go to the Dale Carnegie School. He didn't have an opportunity to stand in front of crowds and make speeches. So he said to the voice there, he said, "Who shall I say sent me?" And the voice said, "I am that I am. Tell them that I am hath sent you." So even as far back as the Old Testament, we see that the first thing that we know is that I am. And even in today's world, if you sit down and meditate and you just clear your mind and clear your thoughts, which is not easy to do because thoughts are rushing in from every direction, but if you do, just say over and over to yourself while you're contemplating that peaceful place in your mind where there are no thoughts, there are no distractions, there's no tension, there's no stress. Just say over and over, "I am. I am." Say it to yourself. If you wish to say it out loud, you can. Just say, "I am." And in a very short period of time, you'll feel yourself expanding. You'll expand in a way that you maybe are walking around contracting. A little bit of this has to do with your breath, because often during the day when there are stresses and tensions and you're upset or you're on a tight schedule, your breathing gets shallow. That's the first thing that happens. And when your breathing gets shallow, it constricts your movements, it constricts your lungs, your thought process, and everything else. When you sit down and close your eyes and clear your mind and you say, "I am," and you control your breath, good breath in, good breath out, you will feel a natural expansion. Don't be alarmed by this. Don't be frightened. It's natural to feel that way. It's natural to feel that you are much more than you give yourself credit for. Along the way, we learn skills. We teach ourselves skills. Usually these skills are of mind and hand, and they are useful. We go out in the world and we apply those skills that we've learned, and oftentimes they help us earn a living. And sometimes the living we earn contributes to others. Maybe you're a builder, carpenter, electrician, plumber. Maybe you're an attorney or a physician or a healer of some other sort. And the things that you've learned, to be sure, are useful and helpful to others. However, if you spent the time from the time you were very young, and this is truly not your fault because you are subject to the family that you're born into, your peer group, and those around you who are trying to condition you all the time, trying to teach you what they think are new skills for you, things that are going to be useful for you, when in fact, they're helping you to forget the power and strength and talents that you have when you come into this world. You come into them already. You've forgotten. Your memory has been all but erased. It's been erased, and you're learning all these new and useful skills, or seemingly new and useful skills, but how new and useful really are they? I would venture to say that the things that you're learning that help you to earn a living are really not what's conducive for you. So today what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about why perhaps we have been involved in this, what's happening, why are things changing in our lives and seemingly changing all around us. Remember back in December of 2012 when people were walking around in groups and protests, and they had signs that the end of the world was near, the world was going to end, and for a while there, everybody was concerned that somehow this magical date, December 21st, 2012, as predicted in the long Mayan calendar, would be the end of the world. Well, obviously it wasn't, because we're still here. You're listening to me now. I'm recording this for you. And by the way, I'm a real person. This is not an AI talking to you. You can see all my facial flaws and all the things that make me human. I'm not an AI. So remember back in December 21, 2012, when we thought the world was going to end, but December 22nd came, and December 23rd, and so on and so forth. But what really the long Mayan calendar was talking about was that was the end of the world of a 5,125-year cycle. See, the Mayans believe that there are 5 cycles of 5,125 years each, and they cycle through, and 1 through 4 ended, the 4th period ended December 21st, 2012. Coincidentally, this was the one that's associated with Earth. They are earth, wind, fire, and then eventually we get to ether. Ether is the 5th cycle that began December 22nd, 2012. We still have the effects of the 4th cycle, which was the material cycle. It's called the Earth cycle, where we forgot about all of our power, all of our origin, all of the talents that we had in past times, and we became much more rooted in the material world, in the earthly world, in that of materialism, acquiring and accumulating material possessions, building power, building fortresses and artifice to ourselves. We do it individually, we do it as groups, we do it in small societies, we do it in countries, we do it throughout the world. But we're at the end of that now, and many of us, I don't know about you, but certainly for me, I started thinking about this quite a long time ago, this bankruptcy of materialism. Now, I'm certainly a man of the earth, and I like nice things, and I like material possessions, but my thought process about them has really changed. And maybe yours has too. Maybe just accumulating more and more and more is not really where it's at. Maybe we have much greater missions here in life, and maybe we have the talents and abilities to accomplish those missions. Well, there's no maybe about it. You have all the talent, all the abilities, all the things necessary for you to not only succeed, but succeed in a way that you can't even imagine. Ways that can benefit yourself, your families, your societies, your friends, and the rest of the world. And we have to relearn these things. A lot of people that I'm talking to now are asking different questions. They're asking questions that aren't rooted in the material world. They're not so concerned with how am I going to get a promotion? How am I going to build this new house? How am I going to buy that new automobile? How can I take that next vacation? And there's a lot that is going on when we listen to the media streams and social media out there. We're bombarded with materialism. We're told about billionaires and oligarchs and politicians that are self-aggrandizing and enriching themselves in countries around the world and countries right here at home, for that matter. And, I'm not here on a moral quest. I don't have any right to say that other people are wrong for what they're doing. Here's what I do have a right, though. I have a right to communicate to you that if you're asking some of these questions, or if they're kicking around in your mind, or at 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up and you're thinking about paying your bills and how you're going to do this or that and what your bank account looks like and your IRAs and your retirement accounts and how you're going to prosper. And then all of a sudden this little voice creeps in and says, why am I really concerned about that? Is that really all there is? Well, I'm telling you that there's a pull into this next cycle that began December 22nd, 2012, and it's cycling up. This is going to be an era where you're going to start to remember. You're going to remember how powerful you are, what talents and abilities you have, the ability to influence others, to change everything about your life and about the physical world. I often talk about spirituality and quantum physics in the same podcast. People say to me, I remember when I was starting to talk about initiating these podcasts, and I talked about it to some people close to me, and they said, well, what's it going to be about? And I said, well, it's going to be about spirituality and quantum physics. And they looked at me with a strange look. First of all, what do you know about spirituality? And what the heck is quantum physics? I hear all these people, famous names that talk about quantum physics and chaos theory and string theory and theory of relativity and all these issues that I don't know anything about. However, they're really related. Quantum just means small. So when we go down inside an atom and we get down inside there and we start to discover the properties that are in there, and by the way, when we start looking at them, we find that there are infinitely smaller and smaller and smaller properties in there. It seems like it's never ending. You know why that is? Because we are observing it. And when you're observing everything on the most minute level, you are also creating. Because you are not just an observer in the universe, you're a creator. And your observation is creative in itself. And then when we pull ourselves out of that small, infinitely small world, and we go to the wide world of outer space and celestial bodies and in the universe, we are looking for signs of the end of the universe. How big is it really? Well, you know what? Same thing happens. We're creating all over again as we're observing. So we're never going to find the outer limits of the universe because we're creating it all the time. And our act of observation is increasing the size of the universe that we're observing. And while we're observing it, it's observing us. It's a mirror right back to us. So you're observing yourself when you're observing the universe at large, and when you're observing the quantum smallest physics, you're observing yourself again. And you have an impact on that, and it has an impact upon you. We are all connected. You know, these are laws. Everyone's heard this law of attraction, and I talk about it pretty often, how you can attract anything that you want in this world because it's on a vibration. Everything is vibrating. All things vibrate. Rocks vibrate. This desk that I'm sitting at is vibrating. You know, the air around us is vibrating. You know, this video is a vibration. It's a series of waves. Everything is energy, and energy converts into matter, and matter converts into energy. Those are the only two properties out there. So there are waves, which are energy, and there are particles. And these waves are, everything around us is a wave. And what happens as you observe the waves, they become particles. You bring them into material existence. And this is how you can attract things to you with the law of attraction. Everything is vibrating at a certain vibration level. Some of the things are vibrating at very low levels, like a rock or a desk or a piece of wood, something like that has a low vibration. The quantum physics, the atoms that comprise it, are vibrating at a very low frequency. And as you get up to the higher levels, you know, things like gases, solids that become gases, like ice. If you melt ice, it becomes a liquid, and then that liquid evaporates and becomes a gas. And those are moving at different vibrations. But the molecules are the same. The atoms that comprise them are the same. And this is how, when you want to attract something, for example, if you want to attract a new love in your life. Love operates at a very high vibration. It's one of those healing feelings. It's one of those things that's at a high level that corresponds to everyone and everything at the same time. It's one of the highest vibrations that are out there. So for you to attract something or someone, to bring love into your life, first of all, you have to give love in order to receive love, but you have to be vibrating at that same level. You can't attract anything that is vibrating at a different level. And as you go down the ladder of vibration, you come into negative feelings, those that are jealousy, vengeance, violence, hate, distrust, things of that nature. And as you go down in your thought process and your personal vibration goes down there, you will draw those things to you as well. It's very difficult to modulate your vibrations. It starts with your thought process. We've talked a lot about this. How do you do that? How do you actually change your thought process and your vibrations so that you can attract better things in your life? You know, the law of attraction, which has been popularized through books like The Secret, which became a film, and many other writers have written about it because everybody wants to use this law of attraction to bring great people into their lives, great opportunities, more wealth, more material possessions, and more success. But it's only one of the laws. There are at least a dozen laws in the ethereal world. In the physical world, we have laws like the law of gravity. Why is it a law? Well, first of all, in order to be a law, it has to operate all the time, everywhere, for everyone. Gravity meets that. It doesn't matter. Gravity doesn't ask what your political background is, doesn't ask your sexual orientation, doesn't ask what your cultural background is. Law of gravity works. Doesn't matter. If you go to the top of the Empire State Building and you jump off, doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, or any other. You're going to hit the ground, and that's going to create a little mess. So law of gravity works no matter who you are. It works for you. It works everywhere. So if you jump off the building, Empire State Building, New York City, you're going to hit the ground. If you go to Saudi Arabia or the UAE and you go on top of a tall building there like the Burj Khalifa, you jump off there, law of gravity works there. You're going to hit the ground there too. If you go to Taipei and you go to a skyscraper there, jump off, you're going to hit the ground. Gravity works everywhere for everybody. Doesn't ask any questions, doesn't take any days off. It works with large, works with small. You don't have to jump off the building and throw a penny off there. Throw a penny off, penny will hit the ground. Throw an automobile off, the automobile will hit the ground. Law of gravity is working all the time. These are easy. Some of these physical laws, like the law of gravity, we can understand. Unfortunately, we have more difficulty understanding the laws of the universe, which we don't see. And we think because we can't see them that they're not real. But this isn't true. Take our own vision patterns. We can see visible light in a very narrow spectrum. Anything that is ultraviolet, which is above, ultra means above the violet range, we cannot see. And this includes gamma rays and alpha rays. And anything below the red spectrum is called infrared, infra meaning below. Anything below there we can't see, which includes microwaves and radio waves. But microwaves and radio waves exist. Alpha and gamma rays exist. So there are these laws of the universe that we can't see. Law of attraction is one that's become very popular. Everybody wants to use it. Obvious reasons are they want to attract more good things into their life, and they think just by learning the law of attraction that'll happen. Well, I can tell you that the law of attraction absolutely 100% works. There's no doubt about it. And you can employ it. And again, it works for everybody. It doesn't work better if you're tall or short, if you're a man or a woman, if you speak Chinese or you speak French or you speak English. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your background is, what your politics are, what your gender, what your culture is, what your age is. It works for you just like it works for everyone else. That's why it's called the law. And it works everywhere. It works in every country. It works for all people. That's why it's a law. But there are other laws. And one of them is the law of oneness. The law of oneness, which we have some familiarity with, but we don't really like this one. We like it sometimes and we don't like it other times. And the law of oneness is that we're all connected. And everything that you do and I do has an impact on everyone else. Every time you hurt somebody else, you're actually hurting yourself. And you're hurting everybody at the same time. And every time somebody else does something hurtful, it hurts you and everyone else. We don't really like that one, that application of the law. We like the one that says, well, yeah, we're all connected, so if I do something kind for someone, it's going to come back around to me. Well, this is it's true, and it's part of the law of oneness, but this is also the law of karma. And the law of karma, you can call it the boomerang law, you can call it the law of giving and receiving, you can call it all different kinds of things, but this is a law too. So if you do kind things to other people, it's going to return to you. Oftentimes even better than the way you put it out there. Unless you take credit for it and put it out, and you want people to pat you on the back and make a fuss about how good you are, like giving money to a charity, and making sure that it's a public notice that you're giving this money to public charity. You should do things when no one else is watching. The reward is just doing it because you want to do it. I'm going to talk much more about this. In future podcasts, I will talk about it even at greater length. But I want to leave you today with the thought that you are much more than you think you are. You've forgotten. And in this fifth division of 5,125 years, which began December 22nd, 2012, and will continue for the next 5,125 years, you're going to remember. You're probably remembering already. You're probably running into people who have a greater memory of who they are, where they've come from, what their talents and abilities are. Spend more time with them. They're not just crazy. They may seem like they have a little bit of a crazy bent to them because you're not used to it. You're not used to hearing the same things that they're thinking. Maybe they're a little bit ahead of you. Maybe you can learn from them. Maybe they have some things twisted, and you can figure that out for yourself. Just judge by how it resonates with you. I can assure you that you are much more than you think you are. I heard recently that there are at least 64 sites on our DNA which can receive and exchange information. And we only use 20 of them. Those 20 are the amino acids that we know about. I've also heard, and so have you, that we use somewhere between 5 and 10% of our brain's capacity. Some people maybe as much as 15%, some people as little as 2 or 3%. Yeah, I'm not making a judgment here. I don't know, maybe I'm talking to people that are using 20%. But the point is, there's a lot more there. How come we're not using 80% of our brains, or 90%, or 70%, or 65%? How come our DNA isn't exchanging information at 30 sites, or 40 sites, or 50 sites? Well, I think we're going to start to get some of those answers. And we're in an age now, in this fifth division on the Mayan calendar, this cycle of 5,125 years where we're going to get some of those answers. We're going to restore our memories. We're going to know and believe how powerful and strong we all are and how we can make any changes that we want in the world. We just need to be the change. As Gandhi said, be the change. What he was saying is, don't talk about it. Don't try and influence others. Start with yourself. Whatever you want to see in the world, be that yourself. And you will lead by example and others will follow. This is Edward Durante. This is Life Perfect Square. You can find my podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe below. You can leave me a message and I will respond.